Hello and welcome to another episode of our From the Helm series, live here in Sorrento, Victoria for our Bell Potter Healthcare Conference 2025. I'm Grady Wolf, market analyst with Bell Direct, and the next company you may or may not have heard of, QBiotics, and I'm joined today by legal counsel Ebru Davidson. Now, QBiotics is an Australian life sciences company that specialises in cell signalling small molecules. To explain more about the company that is possibly eyeing off a listing soon, Ebru, tell us about the company for our investors who may not know of who QBiotics is.
Well, firstly, thanks, Grady, for having me here. It's a pleasure. QBiotics is an unlisted public company.
Yeah.
We are headquartered in Brisbane, Queensland. We're a clinical stage life sciences company currently with 2 assets in clinical trials. Our lead asset is in oncology, Tigalinol Tiglate.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What a name.
Tigalinol Tiglate is in phase 2 clinical trials in 2 indications. That's in head and neck cancers and soft tissue sarcomas.
Yeah.
It's an intratumoral drug, so it's injected directly into the tumour. Our second asset is in wound healing. We call it EBC 1013. That is currently recruiting for patients in venous leg ulcers. So we opened that trial late last year. It's recruiting across multiple sites in Australia. It's important for me to say also that it's a pharmaceutical, not a device. It's a gel formulation.
Wow.
We have a number of other earlier programs, but I guess the most advanced one of those is our microbials program, which is antimicrobials program, I should say, that is currently in lead optimization. QBiotics has a proprietary discovery platform we call EcoLogic. So we use EcoLogic to discover potentially life-saving pharmaceuticals from nature.
Wow.
To date, EcoLogic has given us the epoxytiglanes platform, which is a biologically active chemical platform. That is where our current programs, the ones that I just mentioned, oncology, wound healing and antimicrobials, actually all come from the epoxytiglanes family.
Wow.
I'm really embarrassed to say this, but prior to joining QBiotics, I did not know that 40% of all drugs have their origins to nature.
Well, neither did I actually, so that's very good to know.
Yeah, there you go. So penicillin, morphine, aspirin all have their origins to nature. I mean, I could talk to you all day about QBiotics and what makes QBiotics truly unique and different, I guess, is also, our veterinary work. So we have done a lot of work in the vet space, and it really has underpinned our human programs to date. By that, what I mean is the vet work that we do, the veterinary trials that we've run, not only de-risk and inform our early human programs, but also there's always the potential to be able to take one of those drugs to registration. And we have done exactly that with our Delfonta, which is currently registered for the treatment of mast cell tumours in dogs. It's registered in all the major markets, so the US, Europe and Australia, and I'm really pleased to say that to date we've treated over 20,000 dogs.
Wow. So your lead program is undergoing a couple of clinical trials right now, but the most advanced is soft tissue sarcoma. Now, patients in that area, what do they currently have available?
So soft tissue sarcoma is a heterogeneous cancer with many subtypes, in fact over 80 subtypes.
Wow.
And unfortunately it's a rare disease, and with a significant unmet need. There's not a lot available for these patients other than, current standard of care, which is surgery combined with chemotherapy, doxorubicin. There are some pharmaceuticals that are subtype specific that are available, but not a lot is being registered in that space. So it's a really good indication for us to focus on. And to that extent, we have actually been granted orphan drug designation.
Now, you reported preliminary results for this soft tissue sarcoma trial late last year, I think it was. Can you summarise the results and how you felt about them?
Thanks, Rita. That's right. So we reported some preliminary data late last year from our soft tissue sarcoma trial. The lead investigator, Dr. Ned Bartlett from Memorial Sloan Kettering, actually presented data at 2 key oncology conferences. The first one was at the European Society for Medical Oncology conference in September, where he reported the efficacy data. Essentially, he reported that the clinical trial had met its primary endpoint, which is an excellent result, which was the primary endpoint for that trial was tumour ablation greater or equal to 30%. So we exceeded that endpoint, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
We treated 10 patients and 26 tumours. So from those 26 tumours, we had 10 complete responses, 8 partial responses, which is an excellent, excellent response on its own. But what was even more interesting was the preliminary data that was presented at CTOS, which is the Connective Tissue Oncology Society conference. What the clinicians observed from the trial is that 3 patients who were previously not responsive to systemic therapies became responsive after being treated with Tiglonol Tiglate. So that result, that completely exceeded our expectations.
Yeah.
It was a very exciting result
Absolutely.
to see that. We knew that Tiglonol Tiglate was having a systemic effect.
Yeah.
But, to us, this sort of indicates potential priming effect as well. So that's really interesting data for us, and the clinicians are very excited about it. Our clinical advisory board's very excited.
Yeah.
And based on those observations, what we have decided to do is actually extend that trial to just explore those observations a bit further. So we'll report on the first 10 patients, which we're calling the initial, and the second arm will kick off in the next few weeks.
Very excited. Well, that kind of answers part of my next question. So further readouts expected from this trial, and what are the next steps in development after the trial does complete?
Yes, so we will be reporting on those first patients. As I just said, we're expecting the final report in the coming weeks. We're also expecting, in terms of the next stage, we're expecting to open up that second arm of the trial, the expansion arm. And in terms of the next development plan, I think was your question for this indication. Look, we obviously recruit as quickly as we can for the expanded arm, and then really get as much data together as possible and speak to the FDA about an accelerated pathway to registration. So, what we're trying to demonstrate through our clinical trials is that this Tiglonol Tiglate works across multiple tumour types. So it's not just STS. We want to be able to, and we have done to date, demonstrated that it does work across multiple tumour types. But STS could be the quickest path to market, which is always key. That's key. That's why it's an important indication for us.
Absolutely. Now, you are also evaluating this drug you just mentioned in head and neck cancer. Can you tell us about the status of that trial?
So our head and neck cancer trial is actually open at 7 sites, 5 in the UK and 2 in Australia. The lead site is the Royal Marsden. So we are recruiting patients. We continue to recruit patients in that trial. Again, it's a significant market opportunity, head and neck.
Growing.
And it's as well as being a significant unmet need.
Yes.
So we are hoping to report some top-line data from that study later this year.
Amazing. Now, moving beyond cancer, you've got everything going. You have a wound healing program, which you briefly touched on earlier in the interview. How did this asset come about, and what's the stage of development for the wound healing asset?
So the wound healing asset, as I mentioned, we have a proprietary discovery technology, which we call EcoLogic. EcoLogic gave us the epoxytigliane platform, which is where our oncology program comes from, as well as the wound healing
the
drug.
Gel, was it?
That's right, it's a gel. So it's very easy to use. There is a significant opportunity for chronic wounds and burns. I don't know if you know this, but 10% of most chronic wounds just don't heal. So that's a significant opportunity for us, and it's an unmet need.
Now, as an unlisted company, you've attracted quite a significant amount of investment, which is kind of unheard of because we normally talk about listed companies. What can you tell us about your investors, and why have they seen so much potential in QBiotics before even hitting the market?
That's right, Grady. It's really remarkable that QBiotics has been able to raise approximately $200 million.
Wow.
Privately. And has been able to attract some really great investors. In 2021, which is when we did our last round, where we raised $85 million, TDM Group actually deployed $50 million to QBiotics as part of that equity raise. TDM Group is our largest institutional shareholder. Of course, our founders are also significant shareholders. You asked a very interesting question about why are shareholders
interested in QBiotics.
I hope that I was able to give you a bit of a glimpse into QBiotics. It's an interesting company. We're doing some amazing work. Investors have clearly seen potential for our way forward, and it's also good to have a bit of a pipeline as well.
Now, talking about public listing, a lot of the companies we do interview are publicly listed. Is there a timeline or is an IPO in the pipeline for our investors who might be interested in buying in?
Look, Grady, I think it's no secret that QBiotics has been considering a public listing for some time. The company, the board is considering its financing options, including an IPO. As you can appreciate, with regards to a timeline, that will be set based on market conditions. And of course, we're always wanting to make sure that we get the best possible valuation for our shareholders.
Absolutely. Now, intellectual property is obviously crucial for drug developers and makers. Can you tell us about your IP protection and what is kind of legally covered for the company?
Yeah, so as you would expect, our lead asset, Tiglonol Tiglate, is protected by a comprehensive patent portfolio. Like many pharmaceutical companies, we have adopted what is referred to as a patent fence strategy. Whereby we have filed and been granted numerous patents around our asset to seek to create essentially a fence, a barrier from competition. The intent is that even if the original patent expires, that you have a patent portfolio around that original asset. And we have, to that extent, we have registered patents for use, formulation, and manufacturing of the drug, as well as patents in relation to use in combination with other drugs.
Thank you so much for joining us from QBiotics today. What a big 12 months QBiotics has in the pipeline. I hope you enjoyed that episode of From the Helm live at Bell Potter's Healthcare Conference in Sorrento, and stay tuned for our next episode.